Welcome to another episode of College Admission TV. Dr. J.P. Novin talks with Dr. Rachelle Keck, president of Grandview University, about Grandview's current efforts to integrate AI across all disciplines, fostering curiosity and collaborative intelligence.
Well, welcome to Season 3 of the Higher Education Leader Podcast. In this season, we're highlighting AI education and the future of workforce. I'd like to thank our sponsor, directadmit.com, for helping students navigate the journey to higher education with clarity and confidence. I'm also excited that not only is this going to be on a podcast, but it's also going to be on College Admission TV for anyone who wants to actually sit down and watch it. I'm your host, JP Novin, and I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Rachelle Keck, the 14th president of Grandview University in Des Moines, Iowa, a first-generation college graduate, attorney, and a higher education leader. Dr. Keck brings a distinctive perspective shaped by her journey in the courtroom to the president's office. She's the first woman to lead Grandview, where she has championed innovation, inclusivity, and relevance in higher education. Dr. Keck, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Fantastic. Well, I read a little bit of your bio, but I think it is so fascinating. I think it would be great if you could share a little bit about yourself and then about Grandview.
Well, as you said, I was an attorney actually for nearly 2 decades before pivoting to higher education, and am in my second presidency at Grandview. Was originally a president at a small institution in Northwest Iowa. Love Grandview. I'm in my 4th year as president. And I think it's particularly fitting as we talk about AI today, because one of the things I often say about Grandview is that we have been about adaptation since our inception. We started as a 2-year school founded by Danish immigrants. We're the only Danish-founded university in America. And moved from a 2-year school to a baccalaureate institution in the 70s. And then in the early 2000s, became a university. And we now have 9 graduate degree programs, a couple more in the works. And in week 2, just finishing week 2 of this academic year.
Wow. Very busy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, I have known Grandview for quite some time, okay? And so and you guys have really in the last 4 years, I mean, obviously we had COVID, and Iowa went through one of the severest enrollment cliff periods of any states, and now it's stabilized, right? So kudos to you and your leadership team for really navigating such difficult times and now being prosperous. Going on to AI, how do you perceive the impact of artificial intelligence on the future workforce over the next coming 5 years?
So, completely transformed. AI already is transforming the workforce, and it will touch every area, every discipline, every part of work. And that can either terrify you or it can energize you. And fortunately, we have a curiosity as one of our core values at Grandview. And we're excited about the possibilities that AI brings to the table for not only the university, but for our students as well.
I must say that Grandview's wrestling team is
Yes.
Amazing.
I should have worn my championship rings for you. I have 3 of them from men's wrestling.
And in such a powerhouse wrestling state, how do you all manage to be so good?
We have an amazing head coach, and he and his staff have just created, they call it the championship lifestyle. They live it and they breathe it.
That's fantastic. And I love wrestling, so I'm a big fan.
It's a lot of fun.
It is. It's incredible. It's incredible. I always envy people do that because takes such stamina. So you got to be so strong to do that. In your opinion, what needs to be done to equip and educate students for careers that are either going away or they're changing or they completely are transforming because of the AI disruption? How are you equipping these students?
There was a report that came out 3-4 years ago called the New Work Order. And it says that today's high school graduates will, on average, have over 17 different careers in over 5 different industries by the time they retire. Many of those careers have not yet been invented, right? Think about AI and 5 years ago, and now we're talking about 5 years from now. So I think as an institution and as a university, when you are preparing students for careers that have not yet been invented, that's what we're doing. You have to instill a love for learning, a curiosity, the idea that we will be continuous learning is going to be a part of our lives for the rest of our lives. And again, that can either terrify you or energize you. And those who are energized by the possibilities and the potential will be much more successful than those who think, I'm going to get my degree and I'm going to be done and I'm ready to go.
What you said is so profound because it used to be set it and forget it. Like you had a skill, you had a trade, and you're kind of like, okay, I'm just going to go to factory or whatever you did, even if you're a doctor, right?
Right.
But how do we get, I had someone tell me who was a very successful education technology entrepreneur, and says the reality is a lot of people just don't like to learn. They don't get up every morning, oh, I can't wait to learn something. It's not like going on Instagram or TikTok. But how do we get people to love learning and making that a culture? How do we acculturate that within people from young age all the way until ever, basically?
The reality is some of us are born with it, right? So it's easy. I'm one of those people, like I get up, what am I going to learn today? I'm so excited. You can see I have all kinds of books behind me. I'm definitely a reader. I do think, though, one of the biggest untapped and soon to come to reality potentials of AI is it will allow us as educators to help students find the ways that they learn best and motivate them to continue to learn. And we can customize education in a way that is intrinsically motivating and interesting to students, as opposed to come to my classroom, listen to my lecture, regurgitate what I tell you, write a paper, finish the test, and it's plug and play. We're all doing the same thing. Customized, individualized, bespoke education is going to transform the way people learn. It already is transforming the way people learn.
That's fascinating. So you engage the learner in the teaching process in a way, right?
Yes. A little bit, it's a little bit like project-based learning in that you're learning while you're doing, you're learning while you're planning, you're learning in collaboration. And when you do those kinds of things, you can find how do I learn best? What sets me on fire? What ignites my curiosity, as opposed to, again, this traditional way of learning of sitting and listening to a lecture and completing a test or writing a paper.
Now, you were one of the 9 kids.
I am.
You're the first one who went to college.
Mm-hmm.
In your household, as you're growing up, what happened? How did you end up being such a energizer bunny when it comes to learning? I mean, where did that come from?
A couple of things. I've actually been asked this question before. So I'm number 6 of 9.
Okay.
And we have 3 clusters of kids in our house. And so I'm in that middle cluster. And in the middle cluster, I have older sisters who are twins to each other. I'm not a twin, but they're twins to each other. And then my next sibling was not born until I was almost 10. So, and then the older cluster, they were older than me. So in many respects, I was like an only child for a long time because the twins were very connected to each other and played together and were older than me. So I had to entertain myself. My mother says I was absolutely the best kid in that I never needed inordinate amounts of attention. I could entertain myself. Well, we lived in the country and got to go to town once a week, maybe twice a week for church, etc., and went to the library every single Saturday. It was the highlight of my week. And we lived in the country, didn't have television, of course, didn't have internet or any of those things back then. And so reading was a lot of what I did in my spare time outside of just being outside because we weren't allowed in the house. Go outside till supper time, come back when it's time for supper.
Sorry, I had to ask you that because I found your bio so fascinating and I loved it. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
As you think about curriculum development and strategies to address the AI's impact on student career readiness, what comes to mind? And what do you think you all are going to be doing around this?
Well, we're actually already doing some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Every summer, we have a 2-day internal professional development conference that we call the May Institute. And this year, it was all about AI. And the title, I have it here. I want to make sure I get it right. Future Ready with AI, Bridging Knowledge and Employment Practices. And this was designed for both faculty and staff to really be thinking about what are their skills as educators with regard to AI. And then, of course, how do we teach those skills to students, all with an eye toward career readiness, employment readiness. Now, a couple of things that we already do and that we will continue to do. Obviously, our programs all have advisory boards that are made up of current people out in the workforce in those particular discipline areas that can then bring a perspective back to faculty as they develop curriculum. We have one for each of the areas of the college. And then twice a year, we do what's called a Business Innovators Breakfast, and we invite business leaders from around the metro specifically to talk about what skills are you seeing now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, et cetera, that need to be developed in the students that we're educating for you. We need your feedback. Yes, we're staying up on it as educators, but what are you seeing out in the real world that we need to be aware of? And then we take that information, we go back and we use it to develop curriculum. Couple of pieces around that. Of course, there's the idea that AI is going to be infused in every discipline. And so we're working to integrate it across the curriculum. Yes, there are AI or tech heavy majors and or minors, degrees, etc., but also AI needs to be integrated into every discipline, and in reality is being integrated into every class because students are using it whether faculty want them to or expect them to or not. And so then there's those conversations about ethics and also making sure that the students learn the skills that they need to learn to be competent in the discipline that they are pursuing.
So we're talking about AI literacy and infusing it. So I'm going to mention some of the majors and programs that you have, and you could give me a grade as far as me describing it. So you have nursing and health sciences. So you're talking about patient care and diagnostics and data management of healthcare. You're talking about business and organization leadership on AI-driven analytics. Obviously, you have a data science and information technology, game design and interactive media, to name a few. So I know there's the NPC behavior, the procedural content generation, immersing technology that you all have. So is is AI now starting to find its way into all of these programs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's in the workforce that we're educating through these programs, right? And so it absolutely is. It's one of the ways that we approach the use of AI. Number one, practically, what's happening out there? What do students need to know when they go out into this particular field? But also seeing it as what I like to call collaborative intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that HI, human intelligence, plus AI, they complement each other. We work together collaboratively and not necessarily replacing each other. Now, certain repetitive tasks that are easily automated certainly have already been replaced. We're seeing that all over the world. But we view AI as a collaborative partner, or that collaborative intelligence to amplify what we as humans already do well.
I love that term, collaborative intelligence, because, even if you use AI to develop a game, AI cannot fully experience and understand the impact it has on the consumer or on the user base, right? So it needs that human touch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as you're thinking about all of these majors and other majors that are going to come into the orbit of your universities, are you concerned, or do you ask yourself, well, is this major going to get replaced? Is it going to get fully redefined? And which ones come to your mind that kind of make you pause a little bit? Do we even need to focus on even majors that you don't have? I mean, what industries or jobs are you most concerned about that might even get uprooted?
Wow. I mean, honestly, I think every job is going to be impacted in a major way by AI. I'm going to give you, I may not be answering your question exactly the way you asked it, but let me give you a couple of examples. Prior to me being a university president, I was a practicing attorney for 20 years. I can already see major impacts on the law, the research of the law, the analysis and interpretation and summarization of the law as it applies to the facts of your case. That in the past was a massively time-consuming drudgery. If you were a trial attorney and needed to find all of the case law or the statutory law that was relevant to your case, that is done instantaneously now. So in many respects, replaces a lot of the work that a paralegal would do, for example. However, I just was reading an article earlier this week where an attorney was sanctioned by a court because the attorney provided citations to cases that weren't real.
Oh.
But those cases were provided by AI and presented themselves as real and looked real, but the attorney did not do the necessary due diligence to ensure that the information was accurate. And the courts are really cracking down on that and saying, if you rely on AI, that's fine, but it is still your job as the attorney to not provide false information to a court of law.
We had a great podcast with the former president of St. John's College, Nora Demlitner, and we talked about how criminal justice system, including AI policing, might get impacted. How would precedents look like as a result of this and standardization of it? So it's fascinating. I mean, there's a disruption part, but there's also the job replacement. So if you think about going to a grocery store, more people are now in line for self-checkout. I wonder if it's going to happen in clinics. I wonder if it's going to happen for customer service, for self-driving cars. I mean, it's just like the buggy being, replaced by, horses going away and the Industrial Revolution. I mean, except it's happening much faster.
I agree. I was actually just at an AI conference a couple of weeks ago, and one of the products that was being shared was a completely AI-driven recruiter for college admissions, and then also a student support services avatar. And some of the fascinating data that they were sharing is that in many respects, can't say that I blame them, students would rather interact with an avatar than a human being because of shame, embarrassment, judgment, that personal interaction that comes from human to human interaction. Whereas if I have questions and I feel like I'm not as knowledgeable as I should be, I don't care if I interact with a machine. So there's that emotional component that I think is infiltrating a lot of these jobs in various disciplines as well. I mean, in many respects, if I have to return something to a store, I'd rather just get it done and not have to interact with a human sometimes, right?
I mean, I am really not convinced by these solutions. I'll tell you why. Because, we have millions of students on our platform. So we get to experiment in real time. So, and obviously we're all using different LLMs. No one can afford to really create anything from scratch. But even if you're using LLM, what we're finding is we created this wonderful package of writing college essays, for example, just to get ideation, right? Guess what? Students are just using ChatGPT. They're using Anthropic. They're going out there and using these tools themselves and not using a tool that we created for them. Because, maybe very few are. I mean, we were underwhelmed. So I would be pleasantly surprised if I see huge adoption of those. I think they're going to use it. I'm not sure if they're going to use a new one or not.
I agree. What am I most familiar with? I think one of the things that we're seeing is overwhelm from decision-making fatigue. And if I can do what I need to do with the product that I'm already familiar with, I don't have to learn something new. I don't have to interact with something new. I think you're exactly right.
One thing I've learned, this is my fourth venture and the last one by far, because I've been humbled by higher education in the last 15 years. But but I would say I learned early on that products don't work in higher education because it's so non-linear. You have to adapt. This is a human experience. At least I haven't been smart enough to figure it out, even though we have some of the largest platforms in the country, but those are not products, those are solutions, and they act very differently. So as a legal thinker, I'm really interested in your thought about this risk assessment. So where does privacy laws, I don't know, GDPR, SEC, HIPAA, FERPA, what happens if AI industry and all of this risk assessment and regulation tools?
Oh, I mean, it's certainly front and center. Anytime I'm using a product or a tool or a solution, I'm very cognizant not to use specific names or identifying information. And again, that's kind of the lawyer in me. And I think that's why many of the organizations that can afford it from a corporate perspective, all of theirs is in-house and it's behind a firewall. And it's not ChatGPT or Anthropic or some of these other products that you're talking about. And they're absolutely, it will be interesting to see how it all plays out, won't it?
It is. And as you're thinking about academic programs, whether they're in humanities or much more, in healthcare, do you see programs being retired? We know they're going to get modified, but also being added as a result of this. Are you all thinking of anything that's going to be taken out or added as a result of AI?
Well, I mean, I think AI is certainly playing a part, but that's been going on since the beginning of time, right? Some things just become irrelevant. Now, I do think it's interesting as you think about the liberal arts and the humanities, how there really is a resurgence happening because of AI. And when it comes to communication and prompt engineering and discernment and being able to recognize truth versus fiction and sourcing and all of those things, those are those hard to nail down skills that really are developed through the humanities best. Communication, critical thinking, analysis, psychology, understanding humans. And like you said earlier, what does the consumer want? What is the expected experience of the consumer as opposed to what the data tells me? Sometimes it's about nuances that data can't always pick up on.
Yeah, at least in a legal, I think in all of these fields, could you see a world where there is an LLM just for law that has accurate data that sets the standard? So it just sounds like this is going to get much, much deeper.
I agree with you, and you saw that in its earlier iteration with Westlaw and LexisNexis. Those are closed pay prescription access points for information, and it's coming, and it's going to be here sooner rather than later, because number one, that's the almighty dollar speaking, right? But also back to your earlier point, so much of it is either IP, trademark, or even those private data points that need to be protected from the great internet.
And how do you see education changing, both in terms of accreditation, that there's some murmuring of changes, how we grant degrees potentially? Do you have any thoughts around that as far as it evolving?
Well, yes. How much time do we have? I think the answer to your question in many respects depends on the discipline. Medicine is its own beast. Counseling is its own beast. Some of those tech and science, biology, you have to have just a certain amount of knowledge in order to be competent. Some of the other areas, though, I think you're absolutely right. There are going to be accreditation changes. We're already seeing that in the 3-year degree, the 90 credit degree, baccalaureate degree, as opposed to the 120 credit degree. What are the true foundational knowledge points that you need to be competent? And then, of course, you're going to have to supplement those knowledge points again for the rest of your career with the ongoing changes in information that will be needed to be competent in that area. So, for example, in education, we're already seeing it change in terms of helping educators develop curriculum design and, coursework and testing and assessment and all of those things. But then also, how can you use it to customize that education? I'm an elementary teacher and I have 25 kids I'm teaching. Wouldn't it be awesome if I could adequately teach each of those 25 students in the way that they need to be taught, not forcing them all to learn from the same material? How can we optimize AI to customize and help every single learner achieve maximum learning?
That's a great segue. You read my mind. So K-12, obviously, there's 12 to 13 years before students even come to Grandview. How do you think that could potentially change? And I know you partially answered that. How would you change the way we approach K-12 education?
Yeah, I think same thing as what we've talked about at the higher education level. I think it's going to move beyond the traditional reading and writing and arithmetic, so to speak. And you're already kind of seeing this in high schools that have career academies, and especially as we talk about workforce and workforce development. How can we help students identify early what their interests are, what their talents are, and then again customize the education to optimize those natural affinities for that particular student. But we also have to be careful that we don't pigeonhole that student into a narrowly defined pathway based on early data. We still, I as an educator, still want to encourage students to be curious and learn as much as they can learn about as much things as they can learn.
I think if there was a way we could take off some of the administrative work that has fallen on teachers because we just keep piling on them, and really have a vision. Like, what are we trying to do with our education system? So, for example, anyone who's been a teacher or work in education knows that motivation is even more important than information. Like, how do we get kids motivated? Because if they're not motivated, they're not going to learn, right? How do we get them in this social network to connect to each other and allow the teacher to spend more time? I don't know. I just feel, I don't want to be a complainer. I just feel like we don't have a solid vision anymore. It's just become a patchwork of getting these kids through, and then everyone expects higher education to fix 12 years of bad habits.
Absolutely. In 4 years or less.
I mean, I constantly have to deal with this, even my kids, as they've gone through this program. But I do think there's too much on teachers. We got to figure this out. Do we have enough run rate, though? I mean, at the rate this is, if every day I hear something, do we have enough run rate to upscale our workforce, have AI literacy to deal with the massive job placement that we're going to have in the next few years? I know new jobs are going to come about, but is this concerning to you at all?
Oh yeah. It's kind of like building a plane on the way down after you jump off a cliff. You really don't have a choice, right? You have to figure it out and do the best you can, and that's why I think podcasts like this are so important, because you can learn from what others in the industry are doing, and that's the beauty of humanity too, is that intelligence that you can connect the dots. As opposed to just that linear learning, but it's more the crystallized intelligence that we all get as we get older and rely on our experiences in addition to our knowledge.
What will Grandview look like in 5 years from now? What do you think it's going to look like?
That's a great question. I do think, kind of what you said earlier, it'll be interesting to see how much of the administrative back office, non-student facing work will be taken over by AI in ways that, there are some things about that excite me because it's 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Obviously, it depends on electricity and the internet at this point, but never a sick day, we never have a snow day. We never, so those things can be far more efficient than they currently are, which would then, kind of like what you were talking about with those K-12 teachers, it then frees up the human talent to do what they do best, which is to connect with students and help them to grow into their highest potential.
The last part of this is up to you. Is there anything you would like to share about with our audience, about yourself, about the school, the way they should be thinking about Grandview and their future education?
Well, I touched on this earlier, and I said that curiosity is one of the values of Grandview University, and adaptation is also one of our values at Grandview. And I made up a word about 2 years ago that I call adaptitude, and it's adopting an attitude that you can adapt to anything with the aptitude that you have been given. And so none of us have limits. We all have the ability to adapt in the way that we need to adapt no matter what comes. But so much of it is mindset. And I always tell our students, if you're majoring in chemistry or biology or education or business, whatever it is, you should at least minor, preferably double major in adaptation as well. Because again, you're going to be performing jobs in the future that have not yet been invented.
That's true.
And curiosity and adaptation will take you further than anything else you will learn here at Grandview.
Thank you for your time on this Friday. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll bring you another insightful conversation with a distinguished leader in higher education.